I go straight shields up. However,
is that in your anxious or is that in your avoidant? What would you say is causing
avoidant
that?
is actually anxious. It's just how you display it. You're afraid of being hurt. You're afraid of being seen. You're afraid of being rejected. You're afraid of all that. So instead of the going for the love, your way to protect yourself is avoidance. So it's still an anxious behavior, but it's displayed by pushing people away instead of trying to pull them near.
Okay.
But it's still very much anxious. One is not better than the other, even though sometimes we think avoidance better because you feel safer because you're pushing people away and you don't feel as vulnerable. So you're like, avoidance safe, avoidance safe.
Well, it sounds to me like disorganized is a healthy balance between the two.
Right?
So we should all aim towards disorganized attachment.
I mean, we're there, so I'll just like
high five. We made
all right, we're disorganized.
We'll make it out and fall in love tonight.
On today's episode of the podcast, we are discussing attachment styles. If you're not familiar with attachment styles, this probably isn't going to be all-encompassing, where we explain all of the attachment styles and everything like that. We're actually going to do it through a lens of unpacking a post that Dr. Nicole LaPera shared on Instagram recently. It's down in the show notes, so you can go down and check it out and everything like that. But we're going to be looking at mainly secure attachment because it's the one that is like ever elusive, right?
Right? I was going to say it's that mythical unicorn.
Yes, the secure attachment style. But before we get into that, babe, I think it would be beneficial to talk a little bit about, first and foremost, kind of where we're at. I always like kind of checking in with you and seeing where, you know, because
I'm going to need a little more context.
Okay. Well, we're always healing.
We're always healing.
Right?
Yeah.
You and me are always on this path of continuing to evolve and become the best versions of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And we do a lot of it together, but then we also have our own independent kind of healing journey that we're navigating. And even though we're sharing all of those things with each other on a regular basis, there's still times that, you know, the past couple of days you've had a lot. The last episode of the podcast brought up a lot for you. There's been a lot in your space lately that you've been sitting with. So it's just kind of checking in to see where you're at in regards to kind of your emotional state.
Okay.
And you don't have to go deep. It's just a check-in.
I don't have to go deep. Just like graze across your emotional well-being. Just don't really go too deep.
Just brush
like,
across the surface.
Give me the we're good to go. All good.
Are you good? Are you good?
I'm
cool.
good.
Cool. Let's get back to the podcast. No, where you at?
Let's see. Honestly, there is an incredible amount of opportunity to reflect, heal, and grow coming up in my space. And I'm using the opportunity. Things are surfacing and I'm leaning into it and I'm feeling. And it's interesting, really, because the things that are coming up for me are things that I have been avoiding.
Ooh.
And the fact that I'm able to sit with it is pretty big.
Are they conscious things that you've been avoiding? Because I think sometimes we have those subconscious things that we don't even realize that we're, you know, not looking at.
Yeah, it's both. There's been a lot of the subconscious that came into consciousness and that it comes up and I'm like, I feel like it would be a couple of things. It would be I couldn't feel it or I didn't want to. I didn't feel able. Like I would say like, not right now. Can't do this right now. I'll get to it. Or I would try and just couldn't do it. And so being able to sit with it is interesting and I'm doing really well. Like I have ups and downs, obviously it's a lot, but I'm feeling pretty great. So my emotional well-being is happily, I'm handling it. I'm doing great. I'm able to look at it. I'm moving through it, even in moments that are really hard because I'm having them. It's just, I don't spiral out in the hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting, like I'm feeling it, I'm experiencing it. Maybe I'm crying, maybe I'm dissociating for a moment, but it's not lasting and I'm moving through stuff and figuring it out. So pretty excited about Working through some stuff.
Is there anything that you want to speak to or any part of it that you want to share? Again, don't have to. This is off the top of your head.
I feel like if I did that right now, we're definitely going to get out of the context of this podcast.
Yeah.
And we're going to start to have another podcast. And I'm actually kind of jazzed to talk about this. So maybe we can do that at another time. But right now I'm still deep in the process. But same question. Back at you.
Same question.
How's your emotional well-being? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. I feel that like along the path of what I'm walking right now, there's a lot of, as always, it's inner child stuff. It's little kid stuff. It's me trying to put together some pieces from, I feel like I'm navigating like 7, 8 years old, kind of in that range. And then almost like teenagery, 14, 15, kind of like high school age things. A lot of processing on both of those two time periods in my life. And I don't know, maybe there's some connection between the two of them. I don't know that for sure. I'm doing a lot of processing with friend stuff, thinking a lot about the friends that I had growing up and those relationships. It's definitely plays into the episode today because we're talking about attachment styles and things. And I have anxious attachment style. I have all the attachment styles. And with friends, I typically lean towards an anxious attachment style with friends. So I'm looking at that and also comparing it to present day navigating relationships with friends and things like that. So a lot of that kind of stuff is coming up for me. It feels like, because we do talk about this a lot, but it feels like our relationship stuff, it's not like on hold, but it's also not taking main stage right now. It's like our stuff that we're always, when I say picking at, that sounds like it's, like a scab or something. It kind of feels like a wound at times that we're picking at, but more it's our stuff that's in the space of our relationship that we're constantly unpacking together and kind of navigating together and processing together. That feels like it's kind of on hold right now. Like It's not center stage. And there's a part of me that wants it to be center stage. There's a part of me that wants to bring it up to the front and be like, hey, let's address these issues. But I also think that that's the part of me that doesn't want to look at the other stuff that I'm looking at right now, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to look at our stuff with our relationship because it's almost easier because we're both working on it, right?
Okay.
Where independently I'm over here trying to navigate things and put pieces together. And of course you're supportive and helpful and everything, but I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I feel good for the most part. It doesn't feel like I'm swimming in anything too major or too heavy, but I also am not as active with it as I would like to be, I guess. I'm very distracted with kind of what we have going on in life right now and what we're trying to do with the podcast and content and all those other kind of things that take up a lot of time and energy. And some of it's fun. Most of it's fun, right? We have a lot of fun doing what we're doing. So I don't know. I feel pretty good by and large. I'm excited for this episode too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a fun little take on attachment styles. And I think it'll be interesting to really get right. We're definitely, doing our best to navigate this conversation, but it'll be fun to talk about the secure attachment and kind of what it looks like.
Or our point of view
well,
of it. Because it's
Dr. Nicole LaPera, right? So
what it looks like. Yeah, it's going to be an adventure.
Let's get into it.
Should we get into it?
The attachment
I'm already feeling
styles,
like I need to adjust. I'm like, we're getting into it. Let me get a little fidgety. I don't know. How's my shirt? Is my head on right?
We should have done a little bit of work ahead of time. Because I'm like, where did attachment styles come
before
from?
we came on the podcast?
Well, where did attachment styles come from? Surely somebody came up with it back in the day, right?
Levine, is it? There's
Peter
a
Levine?
book. I think so. There's a book. And I don't know that that's where, I think that that's the person that first started getting curious on it and
Yeah,
wrote
yeah.
the book. The book's called Attached. Now there may be before then. I'm just like, this is what it first came into our space and going through. And now since then, there's several out there. In fact, I'm reading one right now, but actually I started reading it and then other books had to come in and take precedence. You know, sometimes you have several books going at once, but it's one that I stopped pretty quick because I knew I wanted to get into it completely and not be distracted. And I think it's called Platonic Attachment. It's by Dr. Franco. I can't remember her first name right now. Anyways, it's really diving into platonic attachment styles with your friends. And I'm also relating with you on being in that space of wanting to figure that out. And that hasn't always been a strong suit for me. Not always. It's never been. Who am I kidding? I'm like, not always. Sometimes I'm like, I've always sucked at that.
Well, here we
And
go
I
with
wanna-
the origins of attachment theory.
Let's do it.
It is British psychologist John Bowlby and psychologist Mary Ainsworth.
Well, okay. So
And
we
it's
had
from
it.
like back in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s.
Cool.
That's where they kind of, at least that's what's credited with the origins of attachment theory.
Okay.
And then the main, go ahead, what were you going to say?
I was like, I knew that they had done, like back in they used to think that making attachments secure and to help create secure children was to have the parents limit interaction with them. They used to like, you're doing too much, like don't like pick them up, don't make eye contact, you're doing too much. So they were like, if you want a secure child, you basically have to make them feel emotionally abandoned in that sense. And then they later discovered, oh, this is incredibly damaging and traumatic to the kids, and it's causing very adverse reactions.
Yeah.
And so now they're like, oh, bonding, is that appropriate? So to be secure in that space, children, infants, they need to have that stable parent, not the never let them fall, not the never, the over the helicopter, which I was like, I will, I'm like, how much can I be, in their space? But it is that like healthy bonding with them. So I'm really grateful that wherever they started isn't where they're landing, because we need interaction. And it used to be programmed that actually you're supposed to be secure on your own. You're not supposed to need anybody or need anything, and everything you get is within yourself, and you don't need connection. You don't need any of that. And if you do, then you're anxious or something wrong with you. And now they're like, actually, that's not entirely accurate, and that is traumatic.
Turns out it might actually have something to do with your childhood. It might have to do with how you attached to your primary caregivers way back in the day.
Yeah.
So there's anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment style, and then secure attachment, right?
And there's so many spinoffs. Like I've heard so many, but I can't get all those. So these are the ones I guess.
I feel like it's like
with.
everything else where it's always on a spectrum.
Yeah.
Where what we've at least experienced over the course of our relationship, as well as once we started looking at attachment styles and how they showed up in our life and in our relationship, it is very much a spectrum where in like the main attachment style that I have in our relationship is avoidant, where I will commonly do the avoidant behaviors when it comes to connection with you. And I feel like would you say your main one is anxious, or do you feel like you're disorganized?
I'm definitely disorganized because it depends on the day of where I'm at. I think the one that I fight with you the most anymore is avoidant.
What do you mean by fight with me? Like when I'm avoidant?
No, I try to not. Like I fight to keep myself from avoidant. And I seem to like bypass it. I very, very avoidant. And then I hop right past secure and go into anxious. And then a lot of times punish myself for feeling anxious and go back into like, this is why you're avoidant. This is why, keeping that distance. So that's a brief thing. That's just like a brief description. Obviously there's a lot more, but I'm feeling a lot more avoidant. I have anxious moments, and when I have them and I feel like I almost get like bitter Like I get a little resentful a little bit with the anxious moments.
When you're in those anxious moments.
And then
do you feel like that push is getting you out into that, like like you're avoidant of the anxious attachment because you're feeling, does that feel like weak or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I view it as weak. Absolutely. And I know it's not. And I wouldn't say that to anybody else, but for me, the programming,
like, huh?
that's what it was. You know, if I needed this, I was weak. And if I had a need, then it wasn't going to get met. And if I needed it to be met, then that put me in a vulnerable situation. And I don't like having needs that can't be met by me. I do not like that. And I have them. I absolutely have them. And that doesn't mean it's anybody else's responsibility to meet them. And I have to be okay when it's not, because they're natural. And I have healthy needs with you. I also have unhealthy, but I have healthy needs. But it doesn't mean that when I have a need, I'm like happy about it. Of course, when you meet them and when and we have that space, then I'm like, oh, everything's fine. But I don't like having them. But I do get a really big sense of pride in myself when I don't need you to meet them and I can meet them myself. And I feel safer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have...
Where's the Nicole? I can't even say. Are we going to do Nicole LaPerez?
Yeah. We're going to get to that.
I feel like I'm in the hot seat over here.
We're going to get to that.
You said you were avoidant. And why don't you share a little bit about that?
Well, I was going to ask you...
You asked me enough questions. I have answered your questions. Your turn. Hot seat. Light a fire.
I think it's interesting because it's almost like we take turns flipping back and forth, right? Where I will be, if you're not in the anxious role, then it feels strange on some level. And I feel like I will then feel that role. And then vice versa, where it doesn't feel great when we're both avoidant. It's like something's missing. And then it's one of us will step into that anxious role. Those two dynamics, the anxious and the avoidant, I feel like not only are they our most accustomed, right? The disorganized one, I need to read up some more on and look at a little bit more.
Babe, we're describing disorganized.
Oh, okay.
This is like, cool. We are fluent and disorganized.
So yeah.
We are textbook disorganized.
Turns out we're disorganized
right, we
when
are
it
definitely.
comes to our... That's surprise. I'm shocked because we're super organized in all other aspects of our life, right? Super squared away. So yeah. Okay, yeah. I guess that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Where it's just the combination of the two. Yeah. And like, truthfully, when we started looking at these and unpacking these more, it was really surprising to me to find other areas in my life where I was anxious, like anxiously attached, and starting to look at it and be like, okay, why? Right? What does that come from? Where is that? Because it almost feels like when I'm solidly in that avoidant state, it's very protective. I feel very activated in those moments. It's very much leave me alone. I'll figure this out by myself. I don't need anything from you. Mm-hmm. What?
Yeah, you're avoidant. I mean, I don't know what mine feels like to you, but your avoidant is intense.
Yeah.
And it used to very much trigger the anxious in me. And now I feel like it more than it triggers the peace out in me. So it's interesting. Please keep going. I want to
Well, it does. It does very much feel like a big old fuck you to everybody around me, and just leave me alone.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody interfering with my space, right? And I put up all these big shields and blocks and grumpy faces and attitudes and energies and things like that in order to stay isolated. And then the anxious one feels anxious. It feels super panicky. It feels like I don't know what's happening. I don't feel at ease. I'm not, it's like, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you upset? What's angry? It's all the emotional monitoring. It's all that people pleasing. And I don't like the way either of them feel.
Yeah.
The secure attachment is something that we are continually working towards. And I don't feel comfortable in those spaces either. Like, we're going to read through this conversation that we're going to have on secure attachment is coming through again, the lens of Dr. Nicole LaPera, we can just get into it.
Yeah. I feel like we're having more of those
The
based
secure
off
stuff.
of how we are moving forward in our life right now, the way that we are navigating certain things both together and apart, the way that we're coming together in our relationship and in our life both together and apart, that what we do apart doesn't trigger the other one. We're supportive of each other's individual adventures. I feel like we're learning how to be secure through a lot of trial and error. We're getting there in a lot of hard work. We're not there. I'm not saying we're secure, but we are actually, I feel, we'll see. But no, I feel that we are learning secure behaviors and techniques, and we're starting to change our programs a little bit. I feel like we get to experience secure now.
I do too. There's a lot of times where it feels like you're in this space of like you're upset or you're frustrated or you're having a bad day or something is wrong. And, you know, I'll definitely check in with you and see if you need anything, let you know that I'm, you know, available if you need something. But then I just let you navigate it. And then my work becomes doing the best that I can on my end to just be in my own stuff, right? If I'm having a good day, I'm having a good day. If I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad day. And rather than just being hyper-focused on what you're doing. So it's hard though. Like you said, I think we are learning it and I think we are getting better at it, but it is something that we need a lot of work still.
Right. I think we're also good at the fact that, like, we'll just keep using that example because that's one you picked. I feel like on that space, I communicate to you. I let you know what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, that I'm like taking space. I don't, like, sometimes it's even like I'm in my feels and it has nothing to do with you that I'm experiencing. So I'm not making you guess and wonder. Like, and then, like, I don't need to give you a play-by-play, but I'm just like, hey, I'm in it. It has nothing to do with you. And you're like, let me know if you need anything. Check.
Right.
And sometimes I do. And sometimes I'm like, I need a really big hug right now.
Yeah.
So just for that example, I think that is also like we're both, and you don't have to come in and try and fix everything. And I don't have to hide what I'm feeling so you don't try and fix everything. Or I don't like fix it. I don't know how to do it. Come fix it for me. I can't do it on my own. It's your responsibility to fix it for me. You know, so I think that.
Yeah, all of that stuff, all of those behaviors that we would do in the past, like you said, we're learning how to do this thing called secure attachment, but it's because we brought awareness to all the ways that we weren't doing it. We brought awareness to all the ways that we were anxiously attached or that we were avoidant or that all the disorganization of those attachment styles blending. If we hadn't have done that work of bringing awareness to it and constantly kind of looking at it and highlighting it and thinking about it and processing it, and then peeling back the layers of like how frequently it's happening, then we wouldn't be in this position.
Right.
Because it's bringing forth a lot of times, and I know in the beginning when we really started to do this, it was all unconscious behaviors that we had zero awareness of, right? I didn't have any understanding of why we would get stuck in those really, because we were almost like classically avoidant and anxious at times, where the more avoidant I became, the more anxious you would become. And then that would push me even more into avoidance. And then, you know, the same thing would happen where the more avoidant I would become, it would almost pull you into your anxiety and pull you into the anxiousness. And, you know, recognizing that, like, it's always like who started first in those moments.
Oh, I have that answer. It was definitely you. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, you're teasing, babe.
I have no idea how it started. It started because of our programmings in our past and how we came into the relationship with the dynamics that we had, our shadows leading the way. They're like, I recognize that. I know what to do here. So
today we're unpacking secure attachments. And again, it's from a post that Dr. Nicole LaPera, she's the holistic psychologist on social media. If you don't follow her, you need to. We're big fans of her and her work. Her books, I'm going to pull up all of her books right now because she's got a couple of different ones. It's How to Do the Work, How to Meet Yourself, How to Be the Love You Seek. She's got tons of resources. She just released a couple, I don't remember, it was a few weeks ago where she, it was some sort of, I don't even remember what it was enough to mention it. So scratch, but we love her work. She's been really impactful in regards to us navigating not just attachment styles, but just the healing journey altogether. And so we'll share a link to the post down in the show notes so that you can go check it out yourself. But this post that she did, and it's just a few days old, so by the time the podcast comes out and by the time you listen to this, it'll probably be about a week old. But it's how securely attached people act in relationships. So we're going to go through the entire post talking about, apparently, not like this isn't the gold standard, right? But at the same time, her content, if she's talking about it, you know that it's good stuff. So the very first one is people with secure attachments were raised to understand their needs matter because people responded to them positively growing up. So they're comfortable being open and honest about what they need. I mean,
fell the first one.
Come on, right?
We're raised. So yeah, we didn't come out of the gate swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. We're raised.
Yeah.
That's the part
okay.
that we're raised to understand their needs matter. That was not the case.
That was not the case
for either of our childhoods. I don't think that's the case for a lot of people's childhoods, because we came from that generation of like kids should be seen and not heard, right? Your parents were definitely doing. When I think about my parents, I think about it's almost like I was an afterthought. There was so much that was going on and so many different things that what I needed in the moment, what my priorities were, all of those kind of things from childhood, it doesn't at least feel like it. It's not to say I wasn't cared about or loved. None of this is about blaming, right? It's not to blame or shame. It's to explain.
Yeah.
And I did not have that feeling growing up, right? Expressing needs, getting my needs met, emotional needs, all those kind of different things. It was just not on the table. So it makes sense why I don't have a secure attachment style.
Right?
Right?
Total sense.
They're comfortable being open and honest about what they need. That's the other part of it. That's like, I don't even know if for a very long time, and even today, it's still challenging for me to express what I actually need.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And to quote unquote have needs, it's very hard. What about you?
What about me? You don't want to just sit in that one for a minute? Okay.
Because think about how you and I today, present moment in our relationship, we're doing much better at communicating those needs and expressing those needs, right? I need this. I need that. Can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? All those kind of different things. So we're creating that relationship where our needs actually matter to the other person, which is really, really cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. My experience, what I would relate to is like my mom was just in survival mode. So when you're in survival mode, you're surviving. Meeting emotional needs are not something that you're able to do. You know, trying to do your best for physical needs as best you can. Even those ones got missed. But like, she was straight survival mode. So her best was on game, and it just wasn't, it was a very, let's see, how can I put this? I feel I was taught that my needs were selfish and the needs that mattered were others. So if I had like something, I didn't get needs, but I had expectations. My needs didn't met, but I had expectations of how I would and wouldn't show up and what wouldn't be met. So I didn't really get a lot of experience with my needs other than don't have them, figure that shit out on your own. Or like it just, I'm actually unpacking a lot of this right now between the anxious and avoidant and how I showed up with each parent. Trying to get one to leave me alone and be invisible and unseen and just like avoidant as possible and stay away. And the other one trying to be like I went from like, see me to, okay, I'm going to take care of you. And I've like some of the unpacking that I've recognized is like how it was like, it always felt like it was my job to save my mom, save her. And like the part that makes me feel incredibly fucking selfish that I have to realize is not selfish and I have to handle. And deal with because my job was this, right? It was almost like it turned from this is my job to this is my badge, this is my honor, you know, to protect her in a sense. I realized as a little kid that I recognized how unsafe we both were, how unsafe she was. And if I could just save her, then everything would be okay. And then with really sitting with that, I realized if I can get my mom out of survival mode, if she can be safe, then she can save me. And just trying and trying until, you know, again, needs just went away. And I never stopped trying for her, but I also became avoidant. So then there's a lot of I guess I'm digressing too much here, but so needs, no, expectations is what I was given to perform. Not I have expectations. I'm expected to do thing.
And it sounds like a lot of that was unconscious, right? I know, deep breath, but that was a lot.
That was a lot. I'm like, let's not get into it too much because we'll change the podcast. Here, let me give you a deep one.
Right.
This is right. Okay, what do we got? What's next?
So here's the next, because this is all, again, coming from that post, and we're just unpacking it because secure attachment is one of those things that I think we need to talk more about, as this is the goal. This is where we want to be moving towards. These are the things that we want to start practicing and implementing. So this just really outlines it beautifully, I think. They go into relationships not trying to please or be chosen. Failed.
Well, Jesus.
They express themselves authentically. Failed. If a person pulls away, runs or isn't interested, they see this as positive indication that the relationship isn't for them. Okay. We just wanted to push pause real quick on the podcast and invite you to come over and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to reach over 1 million people with this podcast, and we're going to need your help to do it. Head over to YouTube, search out Steph and Craig, and hit that subscribe button. You'll find all the episodes of the podcast there, as well as some clips from each episode. If you're feeling extra generous, which we hope that you are, do us a favor and share an episode with somebody. Maybe even this episode that you're listening to now. We believe that healing is possible and that we all do better when we do it together. Thank you for the support. Now let's get back to the show. Number one on this one, they go into relationships not trying to please or be chosen.
Okay.
Every relationship that I've ever gone into, whether it's platonic, whether it's romantic, whether it's like even just coworker, you know, like it doesn't matter. Every relationship I go into it wanting to be picked.
Interesting.
I want to be chosen. Like, I don't want to be your friend. I want to be your best friend.
Okay.
Right. I don't want to be I don't want to be just the neighbor that's across the street that you wave from. I want to be your favorite neighbor.
Okay.
I want to be chosen and picked. And, you know, I want to be the person for that person. And I think that for me comes from never feeling like I was that person for my mom or for my dad. I was never the priority. I was always trying to be seen. I was always trying to earn that validation. I was always trying to get that thing in order to unconsciously and subconsciously keep that attachment intact.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. You're welcome.
That was a really beautiful way to dive in and see what your need was and to tap into what your deep core need was and speak to that. That's really cool that you have awareness of that.
Yeah.
It's like, it sucks that you didn't get that, you know, it's like, I want to, but
it's okay.
The fact that don't worry, I'm not going to, you're fine. I'm not going to touch.
Don't spark the avoidant.
Right. But the fact that you could tap into that and be like, I recognize what this need was really cool.
Well, it was a long time ago. I don't do it anymore. I'm super secure now. They express themselves authentically. I'm getting better at this one.
Okay.
And it comes through our relationship. It comes through being able to not just say hard things, but also learning who I am, right? Learning actually, what does it mean to be authentic to me? What is my voice? What is my personality? What do I like? What do I not like? And getting more and more comfortable with that. And then if a person pulls away, runs, or isn't interested, they see this as a positive indication that the relationship isn't for them. Yeah. So if somebody pulls away, I'm instantly panicked, instantly into anxiety and anxiousness. even in the beginning of relationships, like with romantic relationships, I feel like I start out very anxious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not until the relationship is secured in a sense, and I don't mean from like a secure attachment style, just where the relationship is finally like, okay, we're dating, we're in a relationship now. Then I think, and I don't have a lot of awareness of it happening or why it happens, or do you know what I mean? But I think at some point there crosses a threshold where I feel like, okay, this person is now in a relationship with me. Now I go into avoidant. Now I go into pushing away. And it's probably, not probably, I'm sure that it comes from feeling like I was always hurt in relationships. All my relationships that I can think of typically end with pain, right? I don't have a lot of examples of relationships that end with anything other than heartache and sadness and pain and guilt and shame, all sorts of different things. So I'll go ahead and go avoidant and protect myself from the inevitable thing that's coming. Even friendships, same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Do you have anything you want to add to that one?
Will you read it again? There was you broke it down each individually for you, but.
They go into relationships not trying to be pleased or chosen.
Okay. So we'll start there. Are we going to be able to get through all of these?
Yeah.
Suddenly I'm like, oh man, this is a long podcast. We're being vulnerable here. Go into relationships with not being trying to be chosen. Let's see. I definitely, it's so varying for me. Let's see, relationships. I feel like.
Because you're almost avoidant in the beginning.
I feel like, yeah. Let me try to, because there's so many to go over. I can see, I'll just start with our relationship. I feel like I didn't put anything on for us at the beginning. I was very much like.
You mean you were naked the whole time?
I was. I had no, this is almost hard to say. I feel like it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I was I get to be me, and you liked it or you didn't. It didn't really matter. So I felt like I was in the space of I'm just showing up. And that's actually who you decided you really liked. And then once we decided oh, this is going, and I allowed myself this is going, then it was shit. How? And then I very much went anxious. I wanted to be what you wanted. Then I very much wanted you to choose. And then that did kick your avoidant. And it kicked your avoidant. You chose some really interesting avoidant things that really activated my anxious. So that was the dynamic going into, I guess that's too far into the relationship, because then I was going to be and then eventually I got really avoidant, and because I'm disorganized. Other relationships, yeah, I think I do. I think I almost go into it secure. I go into it with.
Go into relationships
No,
secure?
hold on. Just because it's this really big, this self energy. And as soon as it's more than that, I think I do start avoidant. And, oh my gosh. It's harder for me now to really be vulnerable. Vulnerability in relationship. I don't even know if this answers the question. I'm still figuring this one out. I'm doing vulnerability without being anxious, and I'm pushing through my avoidant with offering some vulnerability. I'm I want to really detach right now. This doesn't feel like a good space to be in. I don't trust it. It's not safe. I'm out.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show up. Now, if it's really not safe, there's relationships that I'm not saying, let me be vulnerable here. There's people in my life right now that
they're not getting your vulnerability.
They're not getting my vulnerability. So there's the discernment. But people that I'm just are keying up my avoidant tactics, my avoidant, but I'm fuck this, I'm out. I'm okay, let's lean into this. So I'm going to give a piece of vulnerability. I'm not oversharing. I'm not here's my soul, or here's it all. Are we okay? I'm pushing through, because no. But I'm here's something. I'm going to reach through this avoidant, and like offer up a piece of connection instead of waiting for you to offer up, these ways. I'm like, I'm going to take this, I'm putting my foot in the ring and seeing where we're at. I'm not just going to be like, or love me.
Yeah.
Be my friend. Even though sometimes I'm like, be my friend, be my friend.
Love me.
So yeah, I think I'm really over explaining. Let's make these faster stuff.
Move it along, people.
What's the next one? Come on, I'm ready.
So secure a people.
Secure a people. When
they're uncomfortable or confused, they don't sit and quietly analyze or hope the other person can read their mind to know they're upset. Instead, they directly communicate what they feel. Example, I noticed that you've been a little distant recently. Is everything okay with you and our relationship? Okay. I don't know who this fucking imaginary person is that communicates effectively like that. No, I'm teasing. That's the goal, right?
I want to go first on this one.
Let's hear it.
I definitely don't sit there and hope the other person can read my mind. If anything, I wall it off. I'm like, don't see a fucking thing I'm thinking.
So you go straight shields up?
I go straight shields up. However...
Is that in your anxious or is that in your avoidant? What would you say is causing
avoidant
that?
is actually anxious. It's just how you display it. You're afraid of being hurt. You're afraid of being seen. You're afraid of being rejected. You're afraid of all that. So instead of the going for the love, your way to protect yourself is avoidance. So avoidant it's still an anxious behavior, but it's displayed by pushing people away instead of trying to pull them near.
Okay.
But it's still very much anxious. So one is not better than the other, even though sometimes we think avoidance better because you feel safer because you're pushing people away and you don't feel as vulnerable. So you're like, avoidance safe.
Well, it sounds to me like disorganized is a healthy balance between the two.
Right.
So we should all aim towards disorganized attachment.
What I was going to say... I mean, we're there, so let's just
high five, we made it.
Right, we're disorganized. I actually did that. I was feeling insecure in the relationship. I was starting to feel like there was a pulling away with one of our friends, and I invited them to coffee, and I literally said, like, I'm feeling distance. I'm worried about our relationship. And I made that gap. Mm-hmm. And we had a great, so I did the thing. Does that mean that I'm done?
That
I'm
means
secure?
that you checked the box off secure attachment.
I checked Nicole Para box.
Yes.
I punished myself for after. I was like, you idiot. How did you went up and you were like, I'm really worried about a relationship. I berated myself. I'm like, I will never do that again. Wow. I felt so stupid. And I'm like, how pathetic are you? I totally thought I just...
That's the thing about this, where
interesting.
Trying to do these things that feel far outside of our comfort zone, trying to communicate our needs, right? Because that does create such a dynamic inside of you, or at least inside of me, where I do feel really, like, I second guess it immediately. Yeah. As soon as I'm like, even with you, where I'm like, I just did the healthy thing. And then I'm like, no, you didn't. Right. No, you didn't. You failed. You're miserable. Right. She hates you. You're an idiot. You're so stupid. Why are you talking? Right? All the time. All the time.
That's how foreign and far removed we are from secure attachment, that when we actually nail it, we're like, you idiot. That was the worst choice you could have made.
The idea of, you remind me of this all the time, where it's not my responsibility to manage and mitigate other people's feelings and emotions. And I think that that's a lot of what this one is for me, where if I feel like there is something quote unquote wrong in the relationship, I'll just sit and analyze. I'll just sit and think, and I'll always look at it through the lens of, what did I do wrong? Okay. How did I mess up here? How did I make this mistake? How can I fix this problem? Clearly I did something that caused this issue in our relationship, or, with this friend. And now it's like, okay, what do I need to do differently in this moment so that everything is better, because I'm the one that messed it up? And your voice comes into my mind all the time, where it's like, oh, that's not my responsibility. And it's not to say it's not my responsibility to cultivate a healthy relationship, but it's not my responsibility to sit and overanalyze what the other person might be thinking or feeling. Mm-hmm. My responsibility is to recognize what I'm thinking and feeling, and then be able to communicate that. Right?
Yes.
That's the really hard part. And I think it comes from way back in the day, again, some of the things that we're talking about, right? How did I get my needs met? My needs weren't a priority. I wasn't taught that my needs were important. I was taught to caretake for other people's needs. I was taught to make sure that other people's needs were met first before my needs were even considered. And so that's where it comes from for me.
Yeah. I relate with that so much. I definitely like the part where she's like, and expect them to read your mind though. As I'm terrified they're
going to read your mind.
Yeah, I'm afraid that they can see it. Do you ever like wonder, are you ever afraid that somebody can read your mind when you're thinking? Like, I know that's crazy, but like,
I'm not afraid.
Wonder,
I'm not afraid that like other people, sometimes I'm afraid that you can read my mind.
Sometimes I can.
I know. That's the problem. That's the problem there. Anxious. What would that be? That would be you and your, I don't know. That's some weird.
Intuitive.
Right.
I'm connected.
Yeah. It's totally healthy. I'm not worried I don't think about other people reading my mind. But what's funny is that I think I can read other people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean like legitimately every single thought, but I think a lot of times I think I know what they're thinking or what they're feeling by what they're sharing, all those kind of things. It's all that hypervigilance that we got really good at from childhood.
Like that's a skill set that we very much
needed, and now we don't.
But how do we turn it off?
Well, we're learning.
So hard. We're learning. Thank you, Nicole.
We're learning how to be securely attached. So here's another one. Okay. If they feel as though their needs aren't being met long term, they'll communicate that they don't feel the relationship is working out. Hold up. So now your needs aren't being met. You're just going to be like, this isn't working for me. That sounds crazy. They're comfortable with being alone and confident that they have the ability to meet and build a life with someone where there is mutual need. Where there is mutual need meeting. Yeah. I suck at that. I have so much fear of being alone. And not just within the scope of not our friendship, our relationship, but with friends too. Like that's my greatest fear, is that I'll just be alone. I'll end up getting to this point in life where I don't have any friends. I don't really have any connection with people. There was a part of me that for a long time wanted that, but I can see that time periods, because it wasn't always just one time period. There were time periods throughout my life where I thought that's what I wanted. And I was like, I'm just going to create a life for myself where I'm all by myself and I don't have to worry about anybody else. I don't have to take into consideration anybody else's needs. I just get to do what I want to do whenever I want to do it. And I can see all of those periods of my life when that was taking place, how sad I was in those moments, how depressed I was, how disconnected I was, not just from the people around me, but really from myself. Like those are dark moments for me. That's not me in my super healthy, well-balanced, regulated nervous system of like, I think I just want to be alone. That was me always in my darkest moments. Because I really like being in a relationship with you and with other people, and I like people. So I think it's important.
Yeah.
You have anything to add to that one? So what do you do when you feel like your needs aren't being met?
It depends. I think I kind of went into that earlier. So I'll kind of leave it as that. It depends. I guess it depends on what needs. Is it needs that are like agreements that we've had in our relationship? Are there like, there is a point where it's like, if I don't know. I have to look at that one a little bit more, because on one hand, it's like, I'm really good at being alone. Like I've gotten really good. I feel safer. Like I understand that like I don't feel like I'm going to get hurt when I'm alone.
Oh, interesting.
So there's that, like when in relationship, it is in fact vulnerable. I want to be in a relationship with you. And like I have that right here. But then when I look at my life, for some reason, I've always been in a relationship. Always. I've never done the single thing. So how true can that be? I think it on the forefront. Like my awareness thinks it. Like I want to be in a healthy relationship, right? But if it's the choice of like, if it's unhealthy, if my needs aren't being met, if it's, sometimes I just need to recharge. I need to recharge. I need time to do that. But I've never not been in a relationship. So it's funny because now I feel like more capable than ever to actually be on my own. I feel more capable and stable and healthy to be like, okay, I could have time on my own. And it's like, great, I could do that now, but I don't. Like, I like you.
Yeah.
And I like our relationship. I like that we're both navigating this world together. I like that we're both not perfect, because couldn't handle a perfect partner.
Baby, speak for yourself.
Right?
I'm disorganized over here. And I don't know if you know that, but that's the perfect blend between attached and, oh, wait, no. That's disorganized.
Right?
So it's perfect.
You are perfect. You're perfect for me.
You said, go ahead.
And I was just like, I feel like I'm in a place where I could do that healthily now. And it's interesting because I don't want it. Like, I don't feel like I need it. I always wanted that.
Right.
And now that I feel like I can actually step into that, it's like, cool. That's there if I need it. I can go there. It's not needed right now. And I don't want that. I really like what we have. And I hope we keep going this way.
You said that you feel safer alone.
That's the wounded part of me. That is definitely a wounded part of me that feels safer alone.
Where it doesn't feel like you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And when you said that, it sparked, and I'm like, I feel when I am alone feels like the most unsafe.
Yeah.
For me, because I feel like I'm going to hurt myself.
Okay.
Like there's this weird, deep feeling inside that's like, because I always, like I said, there were in those dark time periods of my life where I was like, I'm just going to go live in the cabin in the woods by myself. In the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, and that's where you're going to kill yourself. Like if I'm by myself long enough, eventually it results in me just giving up. And so I think there's a part of me that's really afraid of being alone because of that. But that thought, I don't know if I've ever ran that thought down all the way and kind of sat with it and really explored what it's connected to and everything like that. I think there might be some component to it where as a kid, when I was alone, is when I would hurt myself. All the self-harm stuff of like cutting my hands or burning myself with lighters and all of those kind of things that I would do was when I was alone. I would do those things in secret. I would do those things by myself. And so the idea of being alone doesn't feel safe to me, because that's when I hurt myself, is when I'm alone. So I don't think we have anything to work on. Baby, you're giving me serious eyes over there.
You just said something really big.
I know.
And I'm with you.
Thank you.
Like that was...
There was a lot
to
think about. I want to move on to the next one.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Like that's really big. I understand you don't want to look at that right now. And we don't have to. We don't have to. I think we should at some point. Not on the podcast.
I think that's a big program.
It's, babe, I'm relating so, like, it's interesting. I was over here and I was just like, I just said that whole line and I'm like, look at how secure I am. I'm so secure.
Yeah.
And the truth is that I do the same. I do recharge. I don't always hurt myself. I don't like do the things that I used to do, but it was very much like, get the fuck away from me, so I can use all of my coping mechanisms so I can finally feel better, which involved a lot of self-harm.
Yeah.
And it also involves zoning out. Like I crash for a while to recharge, but then I come out of it. And if I don't get time to come out of it and breathe before somebody comes into this space, then I feel like you know what I mean? So there's this thing here. But what you said is so profound. Like it comes to like the trust thing. Like I really want to talk about what you said. We don't have to do it on the podcast like you said, but I don't you said some big things and I don't want to brush past them. So it's really hard. It's like, I don't want this podcast right now because we're here, but it feels terrible to rush past what you just said and not give you space there.
Well, that's okay. We got plenty of space for it after we're done recording this episode of the podcast.
That's not what I meant.
What did you mean, babe?
No, like, don't do that. Don't do the flippy thing. Like, you deserve space there. You're really important.
Yeah.
And you're loved. Okay, we can move on.
Thank you. The next one is, their relationships tend to be drama-free. Okay, Dr. Nicole LaPera. This is a really good post about what to look for in secure attachment, because we do not have it. Their relationships tend to be drama-free without the emotional roller coaster of wounded attachments. They don't see mixed signals or chronic fighting as passionate. They prefer the stability of a person whose words and actions align. They offer the same in return. Yeah, drama-free relationships, right? What's that all about? Do you feel like you've had one before?
I was going to use humor.
Right?
I was going to use humor there, but no, I've definitely never had a drama-free relationship.
Yeah.
So
we're working on it.
Yeah.
We're
There's
getting
definitely
there.
less drama in our lives.
Well, that's the cool thing, is that as we become more securely attached, not just with each other, but I think the secure attachment is really just being secure within your own body, within your own space, right? You're securely attached with yourself. I'm able to meet all of my needs emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, all of these things that are super important. I'm able to meet all of those needs myself, and I don't need to rely upon external people and or things to get those needs met. And then part of the secure attachment, I think, also is recognizing that I can't meet all of those needs by myself. On some level, there's a level of it that I definitely need connection, and I need to outsource some of that to people that are safe to do so with. But that idea of having drama-free relationships, I think we definitely are. Our relationship is way less dramatic. I was going to say drama-filled, way less dramatic. And then we're noticing that the friendships that we're cultivating and building and things like that, I would agree. I think they're less dramatic or less drama. It's not to say they're drama-free, though. It would be nice to live a drama-free life.
Wouldn't it?
Right? Maybe. We'll see.
Get there.
They also can see their partners and friends as human beings. They understand they'll have bad days, periods where they might be less connection, and times where they get hurt. They don't expect perfection, and because they've learned to trust people, they mostly assume positive intent. Learned to trust people.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you trust me at this point?
I trust you. Just a quick pause to thank you for being here and listening to this episode of the podcast. We really appreciate it. Our goal with the podcast is to reach as many people as possible, and you can help with that. So whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of the many other places podcasts are available, if you would hit subscribe, that would help us immensely. And if you're feeling extra supportive, you could leave us a 5-star review and share one of your favorite episodes. Maybe this one. So again, thank you for listening. And now back to this episode. I'm like sitting in here because there's so many different areas, right? There's like, it's not just a blanket. It's like, it's like somebody can lose trust completely. And where you're like, no, there's people I do not trust. There's so many different like areas. Like we're intimate in so many, obviously we're in a romantic relationship, but we have all of this space that it's like looking at so many areas, and it's like the emotion wheel, right? A kaleidoscope of areas. And I feel like I trust you on the vast majority of those areas. I was sitting there thinking, because it's just like so many things. There's so many things. And I feel like I do. There's definitely parts where I don't. And I don't know that has anything to do with you. It very well might. That might be my hiccups. there's still stuff I'm looking at there.
This is the way that I think of it, where
Okay.
it's not necessarily it's not like that there's areas of our life or our relationship or dynamics where I don't trust you. There's parts of me that don't trust you.
There you go.
And so it's back to kind of the parts work IFS stuff, where the me that is sitting here with you as your partner, the fully fleshed out version of Craig that has a full awareness of, my lived experience, your lived experience, all of these kind of like really consciousness level stuff. I trust you. Like, I'm in this relationship with you because I do trust you and because I do feel safe with you. And then there's different parts of me that don't trust you. And it's not anything to do with you. It's those parts of me don't trust, period.
Yeah, that trust is a really big, it's like there's this thing, and it's like the whole thing, you have to learn to love yourself before you can love anybody else. They have that thing, and we're not going to unpack that whole statement right now because
it's bullshit.
It's bullshit. But one that I do find, or at least at this point in my life, it does seem but it does seem like it actually applies, is trusting yourself first so you can trust other people. And when you don't have trust in yourself, it's really hard to trust anybody else because you keep violating your own boundaries to make allowances for people that are going to hurt you. So you tend to keep repeating those cycles of allowing experiences in that are hurtful and not trusting yourself to make better choices, which usually leads to a strong reaction that either is against somebody else or again hurts yourself, which just again perpetuates. So little things of starting to build trust in yourself. And what I think that also comes back to is that you always could trust yourself. You just stopped. You started listening to other people along the way. You started, like when you're little, you get your needs bypassed. A lot of times parents will try to make something better, or they straight up gaslight you, and you're learning to quiet your truth to fit what they're telling you is the truth. And then that keeps going. So it's ways that it starts to where you knew something was off, you knew something was wrong, but you were told you were wrong. And that etches away at losing trust for yourself, which follows you into adulthood, follows you into relationships, where it turns into not trusting yourself with people, therefore picking people in your space that aren't a healthy choice for you, which leads you to the belief that you can't trust people because it keeps repeating when it was a violation of yourself. So it's not saying that it's your fault. Not at all. Don't hear that. It's like, oh, you do have that ability and you can trust yourself. Do you remember how to listen? So that's kind of like the way that I loop it back. And that's something that I've been working on. And I also have seen you working on that immensely.
The trusting myself.
Trusting yourself, learning how to trust yourself, learning truths about yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so uncomfortable. I feel like you're caretaking me because I said a hard thing earlier.
You did say a hard thing.
But that's okay. So, oh my gosh. Here's the next one. Right. If someone betrays them or engages in patterns of behavior that are toxic, they understand this is about the other person and their own internalized issues, not a failure on their part and not a reflection of who they are. This one I feel like I'm doing good in our relationship with.
Yeah.
Where you'll have a reaction, you'll have, a trigger, something will spark you and you'll get activated. And the first line of defense for me is and defense is the wrong choice of words, right? But the first action oftentimes for me is that thing where I'm reminding myself, this isn't about me, this isn't about me, this isn't about me. Even if it might necessarily be about me. Mm-hmm. Like it's this whole thing where I'm trying to, because that was always the thought was, this is my fault. How did I fix this? Yeah. I just messed up. I just made a mistake. Whatever that's going on with them, whatever the cause is, that's my default thought process. So I'm trying to correct it with like, this isn't about me. They're just experiencing something, even though it might be something because of what I did. It's not saying I don't have to be accountable for my actions, or I don't have to think about my actions or be considerate of what my actions might cause, right? But I'm starting off with, this isn't about me. This isn't about me. This isn't about me. This is about what you're experiencing and what you're going through and what's happening for you. And so I'm getting better at that within our relationship.
Okay.
And I'm trying to take that same thing out into the world with all my other relationships that I have with people and friends and everything like that. Because outside of our relationship, I'm still in that default mode of like, it's my fault. I fucked up. I messed all of this up. Like, it's so hard for me to remember that my friends have some sort of life that exists outside of just the friendship that we have. So if something's going on in their external life, which, by the way, is what's influencing their life, right? It's not like suddenly they're like, well, Craig, you didn't text back until the following day, so my life's over, right?
Yeah.
That's not what's happening. They're going through whatever they're going through, experiencing whatever they're experiencing, but it's really hard for me to remember that. So I'm trying to practice it in our relationship and hoping that it'll bleed over, but it's a slow process.
Right. There's so much to unpack there. I think that responsibility that you get is from being blamed when you were a kid too. I have that same one. It was like, this is your fault. This is your fault. Everybody else's feelings were somehow put on you. Like, you didn't do the right thing. You didn't make the right choice. So they're fighting because of you. They feel bad because of you. Things aren't going well because of you. And then it's really hard to not take that as an adult when somebody you care about is upset that you didn't do something wrong. And then you add in human behaviors where sometimes we fuck up.
Yeah.
Which just only, instead of being like, oh, this one is my fault, I did cause harm, I did cause pain, to see, it's always your fault. Instead of it being isolated, it's a validation for the belief across the board that of course it's your fault because look, you did it. It's funny how our bodies will do that. So the question, the betrayal, I am still really sucking at thinking being betrayed is not my fault. There's that part, because it was like, how do you handle betrayal and understand that it's not about you, that it's about them? And that is still hard for me. I get there after like a long time of working through it, but I think in the moment it's really hard for me to not take that as a failure. So there's stuff to look at. But as far as like triggers in our relationship, sometimes, like, I work on that. There's times that I'm very much scared. I feel like a little kid when you're angry and mad. I'm like, it's, you. But it also goes to with like feeling like betrayal is my fault. And so I'm very scared that love's going to be taken away. And so that's really hard for me to hear triggers sometimes. And I started practicing this thing a long time ago where you were telling me what you were feeling. Sometimes I react. Sometimes I get defensive, right? A lot of times I get defensive. I'm a work in progress. But there's this thing that I say on repeat when I'm finding myself getting defensive and I'm catching it early is, it's not about you. He's telling you how he feels. This has nothing to do with you. He's telling you how he feels. And once I can say that enough times to remind myself, it's not about me. Not that I might not have accountability. I very well might have a lot of accountability here, but I don't need to defend myself. I'm not doing anything like, this isn't about me. What you're feeling isn't about, like, it's not for me to tell you what you're feeling is wrong. I need to shut up and listen to what you're feeling. There might be something where I'm like, that's actually not my experience. And there might be about, something else there. But for the time being, and usually when you're in a loving relationship, this has nothing to do with me. He's telling me how he feels.
It sounds like you're doing the same work, babe. We're trying to reprogram that default initial thing of like, I've done something wrong, I have to fix it. This is my bad, right? Instead replacing it with, this isn't about me. Mm-hmm. They're having their experience and I just need to show up for that. And of course, like you said, there might be some conversations and some work that needs to happen. We might need to be able to have a clarity on a couple of different points. But I think the first and foremost priority should always be listen, validate that experience, make sure that that person feels heard. We're doing a really good job on this one, at least with practicing within our own relationship. Let's go. Let's see. We've got one more.
Okay.
And then, it's just she wraps up the post. They also understand adults are fully responsible for their own behavior. They're not interested in rescuing, fixing, or parenting other people because they believe people are capable. I need so much work here. And they set clear boundaries because they've been taught to value their own well-being, not just the well-being of others.
Okay. I practiced that one yesterday.
You know,
I don't know where I practiced that before.
You practiced it yesterday?
I practiced it yesterday.
Well, fuck, babe, you're healed.
Right?
Shit's done.
But like, that's my default. I'm like, I've like.
Well, hear this
Oh
out.
my
This one I think is
goodness. Read it one more time.
This one
though.
I think clarifies so much of, at least for me, this clarifies where all of my anxious and avoidant comes from.
Okay.
And truthfully disorganized. They also understand adults are fully responsible for their own behavior. Never once have I seen that. I shouldn't say that. My parents growing up did not display that.
Mm-hmm.
That was not something that I got to observe or witness or watch. I never had a lot of when I say a lot of, like, I mean, I like giving people the benefit of the doubt, but I don't have a lot of my parents taking accountability for their actions, period. Right? So I don't have a lot of examples when it comes to adults. Let's use her words. Fully responsible for their own behavior. I don't have a lot of examples of that. I have a lot of examples of adults who were avoidant, who, placed blame on other people, who, they just weren't showing up and taking accountability for their own actions. And then the secure person, they're not interested in rescuing, fixing, or parenting other people. That's all I'm interested in. That's my jam.
Right.
I'm like, hey, you need to be rescued? I'm your guy. You got a problem that needs to be fixed? I can help you fix it. You just need some good, like, life advice? That's me. That's my MO.
Can you see any ways? Because I'm like recognizing like this so much, like seeing it. Like mine was like never accepted accountability, never had accountability. It was always somebody else's fault.
Mm-hmm.
They were accountable for everything
Talking about
good.
caregivers now?
Yeah, caregivers. Accountable for everything good. Like everything that was good, they did that.
Right.
Anything that what they did that was bad was because of. Yes. And then I had the flip side caregiver, which was like anything good they did was because of somebody else. Mm-hmm. And anything bad that somebody else did was somehow their fault. So no accountability, taking the blame for everything. Yes. Those were my options. I didn't like this one, so I went for that one. Yes. But we're sitting here and you're pointing out these things. You're pointing out, like, do you catch yourself? Because again, I've got another one. I'm like, oh, I set a good, like, I very much dove into this, but I did a good thing. And then I set a boundary. So can you catch yourself doing it right? Can you oh, fuck, I'm doing it right now. Caretaking. God damn it. Anyways.
Are you trying to highlight something I'm doing positive?
I am.
So that I feel better about myself? Okay.
No, so you see yourself clearly. I'm like, hey, I did this yesterday, so I'm healed. Now let's give you a little perspective.
Yeah, I don't feel bad about myself right now, babe.
I know I don't think you feel bad about yourself, but it's that where we, oh my gosh, it was Melissa Romano.
One of the previous episodes?
Yes. And she's like looking for the ways that you are safe.
Yeah.
And so this is really easy, like to like look at the ways that we're getting it wrong. And so I keep trying to shine light on ways that getting it right. I'm like, I did this yesterday. I'm catching myself getting it right. And so I'm wondering if you can, like, on that, because we're doing good at this, seeing the ways we're getting it wrong. We've been really swimming in those seas for a while.
Like, I think one of the, right? So like, again, I'm looking at this as we're going through all of these, I'm recognizing that in our relationship, mm-hmm. we're doing a really good job of transitioning into this secure attachment with each other. Mm-hmm. Because I'll do things like adults are fully responsible for their own behavior. That's you. You're consistently more and more and more taking accountability for your own actions. Mm. You're apologizing. You're correcting behavior. Like over the last several years, it's you showing up and being like, hey, I was doing this and now I'm not. I see that where I messed up and I'm working on fixing it. I made a mistake here and I'm trying to, change. you are consistently, and not only that, you're also taking care of your shit. Like there's a part of it that I think growing up is, there's a part when you're a kid, or I guess there was a part, and I don't know specifically, when I was a kid where I had awareness that adults were full of shit, right? Where they were telling me something and then doing the other. Like there was a point in, I don't remember where it was. I feel like it was young. I feel like I was probably in grade school, elementary school, first, second, third, right? There was some time frame in there where I recognized you're not being truthful with me, adult. Prior to that, I think it was just trusting adults, trusting everybody. You know, if mom or dad or some adult out there in the world said something to you or told you to do something or told you something, you're like, that's fact, that's truth, right? And then somewhere along the lines there, I'm like, you're full of shit. You're not being truthful. And I saw that repeated over and over and over again with almost all the adults in my life. Now, it's not to say, because it's like you and I are both practicing this behavior of being accountable where our words align with our actions and everything like that, right? So it's definitely possible. But that to me is what the big distinct difference is our relationship didn't used to be that way. We would both talk a big game, but then not back it up with anything, right? We would pretend like we were X, Y, or Z, but then because we were in relationship, we knew what was kind of behind the curtain of all of those things. And be like, you're not really doing that work. You're not really doing that stuff. And I think that there were times in my life where I would judge that behavior in you as like, oh, your words don't match with what you're actually doing. And now I don't see it that way. Now I see it as you're continually trying to become that version of you that you're talking about. You're continually trying to become this healthy, mature, securely attached adult. And so it's much easier to kind of trust you. And one of the ways that I'm getting it right is now when we're in those moments where you're having an off day or something has triggered you or has upset you, whereas before I would just spiral into people pleasing and fixing it and solving it. Like if you're not going to tell me what's wrong, I'll figure it out. I'll either figure out a way to get you to tell me what's wrong so then we can fix that problem, or I'll just go around imagining what the problem is, trying to problem solve and fix it, right? And now I'm just like, something's wrong? Cool. Do you want to talk about it? No? Let me know. Let me know if you do. Let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. Let me know if there's anything that I can help you with, even if it's just somebody to listen. And then I can just leave that offering there and then move about my day. Whereas previously, I wouldn't even make that offer of like, let me know if you need any help with that. I'll be like, you clearly need help with this. Let's fix this problem together.
Yeah, you're really good at that. You're really leaning into that deeply. And
it pisses you off sometimes.
Well, probably.
Sorry,
what's
that's
coming,
not what you were going to say.
No, what's coming to mind right now is how often I'm really like, I'm in the thick of it and I tell you how I'm feeling. Not about you, right? I'm just like I'm processing. There's big things coming up right now. But I'm telling you how I'm feeling. I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling like completely scattered. I feel like I don't have a hold on this, just some things that I'm feeling. And you want details. You've always been a really detailed oriented person. Like you said, all those behaviors that you used to do, which would also make me, anyways, it doesn't matter. The point, it didn't feel good for me. It didn't feel healthy for me. And it wasn't healthy for either of us to be like, so like when the other person wasn't right. I'm trying to stay online without digressing off, but it's so hard for me to just get to the point without explaining my actions on both sides. So that's why I keep kind of bouncing all over. Anyways, my point, I can get to it because I can speak clearly and I don't need to explain my thoughts, is now when that comes up and you start to dive in, also, you don't know that I don't want to talk about it, right? And then I tell you, I don't want to get into the details about it. I just wanted to say what I was feeling. I just want to feel what I'm feeling. And right there, you're there. You're like, got it. You're not pushing for anything. You're not.
That takes so much work on my part.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
But-
you're nailing it.
But even you being able to, like, that takes a huge amount of work on your part to say, hey, I don't want to talk about this. I just wanted to say what I said, and I don't want to go into it anymore. I don't want to go towards this thing. I just want it to be what it is, and then we move on. That is a huge boundary that you're setting for yourself, babe.
Thank you. And I just want to, like, for me, my experience on that isn't that I'm not going towards it. It's that I am going towards it. I'm not wrapping myself up in the story. I'm not wrapping myself up in the chaos of the details at that moment. I've got the details. I've got it. It's going. What I usually do is try to, like, analyze as you do. Like, and it's usually analyzing what I did wrong, punishing myself for doing that wrong so harshly that in hopes that I can prevent myself from ever doing that thing wrong again, which caused this uncomfortableness to come in my way. Because it doesn't matter, it was, if somebody did something to me, it was my fault. So it's like all of these ways that I would get out of my body, avoid feeling, and try and figure it out. Try and figure it out with all of my unhealthy tools, right? Trying to figure it out with all of the broken programming that I got. So I kept experiencing the same experience because I would keep making the same choices because that's the programming that I had. And what I wouldn't do is feel it. So when I say, hey, I'm not, like, I don't want to get into the details of it. I'm just telling you what I'm feeling. I want to feel it. That is me, like, bullseyeing right for it. Not afraid of it. Gonna go to it, gonna go through it, because I'm doing the thing that I never could do, which was feeling it. So that was just like, you're like, no, I don't want to go towards it. I'm like, I am like diving headfirst into it because I'm going to allow myself to swim in those feelings.
That's so huge.
And share that, hey, I'm feeling these things too. And like, also because I know you're so in tune that if I'm feeling them that deep, you're picking up on them.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's a whole, I don't know. I'm going towards it. And like, I had to clarify that, but the fact that you let me, the fact that you hold, it's not holding space, that you give me space. You don't have to hold space. You just give me space to be in my own space.
Well, it's the first sentence here. It's understand beautiful. That adults are fully responsible for their own behavior.
That means fully able.
Yeah. That's like, you're responsible enough at this point in your life to handle your business, to handle your emotions, to handle your thoughts, to handle how, you can regulate yourself now. And I'm not sitting here being like, well, it's about damn time,
I mean,
but that's what the unhealthy attachment styles, the disorganized attachment styles, all of those things stem from the inability to regulate that nervous system by yourself. I need you to help me regulate it, right? And now at this point, it's like I'm learning how to regulate that myself. Yeah. I'm securely attached into my own body to be able to regulate, recognize, communicate my, feelings, my thoughts, all of those things.
I feel like I still struggle with that with you. I feel like that's a hard one for me still too. I still want to come in and be like, oh, look, I want to regulate for you. But I feel like it's hard.
It's
I want
hard
to regulate.
For me
I want to like make it. I want to pump you up. I feel like you don't see yourself accurately, and I'm like, let me do it. Let me show you how amazing you are. It's really hard for me to just like, okay, you can see yourself that way. That's okay,
right?
And I'm like, but you're wrong. You're amazing. Let me prove it to you.
Yeah, there's times where I'm in my anxious attachmentness, and I want you to make me feel better. I want you to fix whatever I'm. I want you to come in and regulate my nervous system and make me feel better. And you don't. And you stay over there in your healthy, secure space of like, yeah, that's up to you, dude. And you don't do it in a jerky way, right? But in those moments, I'm like, this is my thought process. I don't articulate this to you, right? But I'm like, why are you being so mean to me right now? Oh, like, can't you see that I'm just trying to have you help me? Even though I know, like, we've done enough work at this point where I can acknowledge there's another part of me in those moments that's like, she's doing the healthy version of this dynamic and you're doing the unhealthy version of this dynamic. And I'm like, I don't care.
Right.
I still want her to come in and make me feel better and fix this thing for me. And then by you not doing that, I have to figure out how to do it myself. And then I either go to maladaptive, unhealthy coping mechanisms or all the healthy ones that we're learning, right? Reading all of these things, babe, like we're through the list now. The final post on her, the final thing on her post here is we can all practice becoming more securely attached. Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
There's a lot of room to practice.
We all can practice becoming more securely attached. Do you feel you have a secure attachment or are you still working on it? We're working on it, Nicole.
We're working on it.
Okay, let's talk about it in the comments. Well, we did a whole podcast episode for you. Go follow her. Again, it's the holistic psychologist on social media, Dr. Nicole LaPera. This post is in the show notes. We can send a link down in the show notes so you can go look at it and read through it yourself. There's some really great comments there. This is one of those things where we're going to do more episodes, I'm sure, on attachment styles at some point. We would love to have Nicole come on, Dr. Nicole LaPera come on and talk about them. And I think what I've learned just within the span of this conversation, babe, is we're doing really good when it comes to our relationship. At least for me, I feel like I'm doing really good navigating a secure attachment style, incorporating a lot of the healthy ways to cultivate that within the span of our relationship. And I need to take that now and apply it to the outside world with other relationships, because I still feel like I'm a chaotic, anxious mess out there. Yeah. Where I'm either fully in my anxiety-based attachment with friends and kids. Like we didn't even bring up relationships with our children because ain't nobody got time for that. But that's what I'm recognizing is I'm doing really good in our relationship, which makes sense, right? Because it's like the safest place for me. I feel really safe in our relationship. And I want to incorporate more of what I'm practicing here in our relationship with the external world and those other relationships. So things that stand out to me are communication are massively important, right? And then also being able to not just sit in discomfort, but know that when I am in a bad mood, when I am feeling bad things or hard things, when I'm navigating those things, there's an end to them. I think a lot of times I'm so stuck in sadness or depression or, just feeling crappy. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to end. Yeah. It feels like this terrible moment, right? So I have to remind myself like, oh, this ends. This ends. Yeah. This ends. That's a big practice for me lately where I'll be in a funk for a few days and I'm like, life is over. This is horrible. Like, what are we doing with our life? Everything's a mess right now. And I'm like, nope, this is just today. This is just the moment. This will end. Next thing you know, you'll be feeling like everything's great. Yeah. So just relax and be in it. Is there anything that stands out to you as kind of like key points that maybe have come up as we talked about all of it?
Some light is definitely illuminating on things that I couldn't see. I got some shadow revealed a bit, ways that some areas that I thought I was doing, I could definitely have more work. I knew I had more work. I wasn't over here thinking I was secure by any means. I just, some of those avoidant areas or shadow areas that I thought were strengths were in fact shadow, and can bring a little more light there. And I'm actually doing way better than I was giving myself credit for. I'm seeing the ways that I'm not only taking this here, but I am expanding it out into the world. And I have examples that are like recent. And so I'm just having a moment of just a lot of like gratitude and seeing how, like, I don't know, this was impossible. Like these kind of
like secure attachment was so foreign, right?
It was impossible. And
you're doing it.
And it's not that, I don't know that you ever just become completely securely attached. And you might. It feels like for me is you learn secure attachment behaviors, programming, like you learn how to bring that into your space. But it feels like like secure, I think is the thing of like, well, it's easy, right? You're secure. You don't have to work. And I feel like that takes the most work. I feel like it takes the least amount of work to be disorganized because you're just flying off with your like reactions. And so it's just like that awareness of like, oh, secure isn't easy. Secure is hard. But that's the work that you're putting into it for the healthier relationship. And, you know, it's like that choose your hard that we keep hitting. Choose your hard. It's really hard to be disorganized and it's hard work to move towards secure. And you have to, so I don't know, just a lot of really cool stuff that I'm like, I got to look at. We'll just add that to the bucket that I'm processing right now because turns out we're doing some good work.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you.
Oh, I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I think you're doing a really, really good
You're
job.
doing a really good job.
I like how securely disorganizedly attached we are.
So if you resonate, you're doing a good job too because
Yes.
you're trying. And if you're still here, you're kicking ass because you listened to the whole thing and was willing to sit there with yourself and and all the ways that we may be mirroring for you. So like you're a badass. You should be proud of yourself too.
Thank you for the support with the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Whether you're following or listening on Apple Podcasts, oh my goodness,
Apple, Spotify,
YouTube, all those kind of different places.
YouTube,
Please
YouTube.
subscribe to the podcast. Click the little notification button there so that you'll also get notified when new episodes release. There's new episodes of the Steph and Craig Show every Monday and Thursday. And we have a ton of clips up on YouTube and all the other social media places that you can find us. You can always go to our website, stephandcraig.co, find out all of those things there as well, and message us, shoot us a message. If you've got good ideas of guests that you want to come on the podcast, please send them our way. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, hit us up. If you want us on your podcast, we would love to be a guest on your podcast as well. You can contact us there or DM us on any of the social media platforms. Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Expect the best.
Plan for the greatest.
We got a wild ride. Wait and see, you and me. We were meant to be.
We want to make something perfectly clear. This podcast is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as a substitute for professional advice. We're sharing with you our own personal experiences and insights, things we have found to be helpful on our healing journey. But we are not licensed therapists. If you need help, it's important to seek out a qualified professional. Remember, we believe that we all do better when we heal together. See you soon.